Do you want to hear some real, loving, female-led relationship stories? Well, I have a treat for you because today I am going to read 6 stories that I've collected over the years from my book, Loving Female-Led Relationship Stories, which is actually featured on Amazon. I am Tierica Patterson, the author of a variety of books about loving female-led relationships, and I have been teaching female-led relationships for 10 years. Story number 1. His trust in me made me more confident. Can you believe that I'm a 42-year-old woman and I'm already retired? I have this beautiful gift because of my husband. What started as a pretty average relationship changed into a loving FLR when he asked me to give him advice about his career. He is a smart man, but he seemed to lack motivation in the past. When I met him, I was happily working in retail, and he was a junior associate at his company. He had been a junior associate for many years with no desire to move on. One day over dinner, he asked me for my opinion about changing positions at his company. I was happy that he asked because I had been thinking about it for a while, but I didn't want him to feel pressured by me. I told him that I thought he was too smart for his current position and that he should buy a new suit and go for a higher position immediately. He did just as I was advised, and within a month, he was earning significantly more than before. He was so proud and happy that he began to ask me for advice all of the time, and whatever I advised, he would do it. His trust in me made me more confident, and I began reading more about successful people in his field, learning their techniques, and offering advice even when he didn't ask. He always followed my suggestions, and he kept improving. We kept improving. He treats me as though I am his favorite mentor, and I have stepped up to be the best mentor I can be. I let him know when I thought we were ready to live together. I let him know when I thought it was time to buy a home. I even let him know when I thought it was time for us to be married. Every time I made a suggestion, he listened. He still does. I told him that I wanted to be a housewife and retire from working, and he agreed. He asked what he needed to do to make that happen, and I gave him a goal for our savings account. He met that goal in a little more than a year. I do invest a good amount of time into guiding him in his career and challenging him to be a better man. I want a fit husband. I want a savings account that is healthy. I want to always look nice, and I want him to look nice too. I want to focus on our spirituality and wholeness. It does not matter what I suggest. He genuinely seems eager to try it and learn more. I don't know what I did to deserve such a man, but I show him how much I appreciate him every day. Story number 2. He never says no to me. It is hard to find good information on female-led relationships online. Most websites show so many photos about men being treated like animals and women being so mean. Our FLR does not have any of that. Our female-led relationship does not have kinks at all. My friend Casey told me about female-led relationships when a man she met online asked her if she knew about them. During her research, she found so many websites about control and punishment that she was turned off and she stopped speaking to him. I started doing my own online research and saw the same thing until I read something about loving female relationships. As I read the stories and advice, I was excited. I told Casey about loving FLR and we both agreed that it made sense. Not only did it make sense, I think I already have a loving FLR with my husband and he doesn't even know it. My husband and I have created our dream lives together. He's a teacher. I am a business consultant. We live just outside of Montreal. I am 36 and he is 53. We met at a mutual friend's birthday party and I thought he was kind when he offered me a ride home afterwards and did not make a move on me. He was patient with me as I disentangled myself from a messy divorce during that time. We were friends first, but I saw traits that my ex-husband didn't have. Sometimes I think I married my ex-husband just so that I would learn what to avoid in a real loving relationship. We've been married for 2 years now, and I have no complaints. He makes sure of that. He does a lot for me. He likes the little gentleman type things like massages and telling me how beautiful I am every day. We pay bills together, but he pays more even though I earn more than he does. I don't have total control over him. I don't have to control him. I don't keep tabs on where he is. He doesn't have to ask me for permission for anything. He is his own man, and that is what I like most about him. He makes great decisions when he has to. Most of the time, we take turns to decide what we want to eat and other decisions like where to vacation. He never makes me feel sad. He never argues with me when it's really important to me. We hang out together more than we do with our other friends, but we have separate social lives. I go out with Casey and other ladies from my networking groups when I can. I pamper him just as much as he pampers me. I love cooking for him, running errands for him. If he is tired, and sometimes I give him massages. I enjoy doing those things for him, and he always says he appreciates it. The reason I believe I have a loving FLR is when we have a big decision to make, I always have the final say. I don't have to fight for it. I never have to argue. He will say what he has to say and then ask me what I want. When I tell him what I want, he will think about it for a second and then he gives in. Sometimes I will sit there with a smirk on my face because I know he's just pretending to consider my choice. He never says no to me. I have never been much of a leader. I'm a go with the flow type of woman. In my group of friends, there are other women who are more bossy and try to take charge all of the time. I'm pretty relaxed with everyone. With him, I don't feel like I'm leading, but from what I've been reading about loving FLRs, I am. I am leading when it comes to things that are important to me. When I don't know what I want or what we should do, we talk it out. He presents options for me to make it easier for me to choose, and then I choose. He goes along with whatever I decide. It seems like having a loving FLR is about the man's decision to give the woman what she wants. If you have a partner who wants to argue or fight with you and doesn't want to listen to you when you tell him that something is important to you, then that's not a loving FLR. A loving FLR, at least in my home, is when your partner wants you to be happy and does what he can to make sure that you are. My husband is like that. I didn't have to train him or write out a contract or punish him. That's who he is, and I am so glad I found him. Story number 3. My goal is to help her be the best she can be. Let me tell you a little bit about my wife, as she's exceptional. Not only is she really smart, she has 2 doctorate degrees, but she is really driven to do her best. Her work ethic is at a level that is outstanding, and she truly cares about her patients and her students. Moreover, she's classy in every way, and she's a great mother. She has great faith, ethics, and morals. She keeps me on the straight and narrow. Wives are good at that. In college, she was a nationally ranked gymnast, and I really think that competitive spirit has influenced much of how she operates. I'm not afraid to say that early in our marriage, I was intimidated by her successes on all fronts. She had a much better resume than me, was out earning me. I really don't think she meant for this to happen, but her strength and attitude certainly contributed to turning me into a supportive husband. I was always so desperate to please her and win her over that I became driven to serve her. I'll admit that I've had passive tendencies since I was a teenager, and I've always been in awe of the female gender, but her forcefulness and ambition is the first several years of our marriage set off a mindset for me that has not changed since. My wife is superior. She knows it, and I have to keep her happy. I became what I understood every wife needs and many want. Once it started, there was no turning back, and I would be lost in another role. How did this evolve? My wife was working and going to school while our kids were young. She was trying to do it all, including the housework. She was and still is somewhat old-fashioned. It was planted into her mind that it was the wife's job to care for the home, whether she wanted or not. But she needed help, and I was the answer. I can't really remember how the transition went, but I've been doing 100% of the cleaning, laundry, and grocery shopping for the vast majority of our marriage. For years, she reluctantly agrees. She didn't buy into me assuming what was once viewed as a feminine role, and she was critical of how I did the work. Fast forward years later, she's accepted the role. It's now expected that I would do all of the housework. She's even bought me birthday presents that are geared towards being a homemaker. Her sister knows what I do. She doesn't like to broadcast to the world that I'm the domestic, but she gives me chores as if it was as natural as could be. Doing virtually nothing at home allows her to be the best she can be professionally, and boy, is she good at what she does. This freedom allows her to pursue other interests. She loves to read, exercise, go on hikes, volunteer at church. I, on the other hand, am very comfortable just being in a supportive role. I was made to be a homemaker, even though it will never be more than a part-time role. But there's more. My wife doesn't have an office staff set up like I do. She needed a secretary, and I was chosen. She saw that I was very task oriented and really organized. She's brilliant, but a bit scattered. She knew that I wanted to please her, so she turned me into her personal assistant. Because of our roles in our marriage, I was completely on board. Not many days go by that my wife doesn't ask me to do something. Print this paper, make this phone call, run this errand, remind me to do this. I need nylons. She doesn't even need to tell me what size or shade because I already know. I am a partner in my firm. I get more satisfaction out of serving my wife than I ever would at work. Work is work. Serving my wife is my passion. Just the other day, she said that I need you to take a Friday off soon as she was planning a get together for a couple of professional women at our house. Amazingly, she didn't have to explain at all. She knew that I knew this meant I'd be cleaning the house on Friday and running errands all day for food preparations. The chemistry is there. Some men would disagree, but I believe that when your wife has a real sense of power in the relationship, it makes the husband so happily weak. My wife has the power over me. She couldn't be nicer, but yet she completely controls my emotions. It is often said that wives and mothers have a lot of guilt. Well, I do too. I started doing the housework when my wife was working on getting her master's and working as well. Once I started, I never stopped. She knows it has to be this way. She doesn't say it, but there's no way she would change our roles other than she would like to work less. She's starting to notice that we're not alone. She mainly just laughs and compares now to the past. She doubts that the men of a generation before me will actually be happy to be a housewife like I know I am. She knows I'm different, but she knows that I make her life easier. So I've shared a lot. It's hard for me to speak for how my wife would tell her story. She would probably say it's a mixed bag. She truly appreciates what I do for her. She needs me to do what I do for her. She still likely has some guilt that her husband does all the housework, so she's reluctant to share it with the world. It took a long time, but I think she's over the concern that I'm playing a female role. She sees that society is changing and that I'm not the only one. She's amazing in so many ways, and I like to believe that I played a small role in her success. She always has been and always will be the boss, and I'm very accepting of my role in our marriage. After all these years, I think it's working. I often wonder, should I tell the world, or is the world not ready for a man like me? Story number 4. He wants to be the source of my happiness. I always wonder why people pressure the man to be the leader of the relationship, especially because of religion. What if the woman in the relationship is just better at leading? Why force it on the man if this is not something he does not have a desire to do? My husband made my happiness the top priority and he allows me to direct the relationship. It was about what I wanted and not what he wanted from me. I dominate the arguments. Most of the time, he just sits and listens and doesn't really try to resist or argue with me. Not saying that he doesn't express his opinions, but he just has no desire to argue with me about anything. Upon us first starting this relationship, he always wanted to pamper me. It started with him never wanting me to have to work. Of course, if I am working because I want to, he supports it, but he never wanted to place me in a position where I have to work to make ends meet. He also did not like to sit back while I did housework or things like that. He wanted me to be the one sitting back and relaxing while he does those things. Everything I asked him to do, he would do it, or he tries his best to get it done. He trusts me not to take advantage of him in a negative way, but he wants me to use him to my advantage, if that makes sense. When it comes to our budget, he is the breadwinner, but I am in charge of what we do with the money, and I've done a great job so far. When we moved to Houston, there was time when he had to get a car title loan and pawn a lot of our belongings, but now we have a good amount in savings. All our bills are paid on time, and we have much left over to have some fun with. We have goals and ambitions. He always looked for my approval on things and made sure I was happy. I have made all the major decisions in our relationship. I made the choice for us to move from a small East Texas city to Houston, Texas. I am making the decision for us to move to a smaller suburb outside of Houston when our lease is up where we live. We can still work in Houston and enjoy the exciting things that the city offers without all the clutter and complications of city life. The things that he's in charge of, I put him in charge of those things. He does all the things willingly that I can't do, like car and house maintenance. When we go out together, he does the driving because he's the better driver. I let him lead on things publicly when I feel that it will cause people to respect us more. Like when we went car shopping, he looks at the cars and talks to the salesman and makes sure the car is in good running condition and that we're getting a fair deal. But when it comes to the paperwork, I come in and take charge. I have the brains and he has the brawn, I guess. When it comes to spirituality, he follows my lead and trusts me. We started out as Christians, and that was a very important part of my church, and he supported me every step of the way. This is where it was first brought to my attention that men are supposed to rule the household, and they are the spiritual leaders. But if you are better at doing that than the man, why is this something that would be forced? Why can't the better person just do it? At the time, I had even made a choice that we should be celibate, and we were for about 7 months. When I started to become more enlightened and ended up leaving the church and started seeking answers on my own, he followed my lead on that as well and trusted me. I am someone who always wants the truth no matter what, and I am honest and forthcoming with him, and he admires that. He wanted to be the source of my happiness. He wanted everyone to see how he takes care of me, how he provides for me, and does everything for me without me lifting a finger. This has not always been a perfect situation because I didn't respect him like I should because I felt he should be more dominant because he is what society tells us. I consider him to be p-whipped. On a serious note, I'm just the more responsible one. Not taking anything away from him, it's just that when you compare us, I am more the responsible and organized one. I think he just noticed that in me and feels like I am better at leading the household than he would be, so why not let me do what I am naturally great at doing? I don't think it was anything intentional of me leading the household. It's just the way it came to be when our personalities came together. Since discovering your website and reading the different stories, I'm starting to admire and respect him for who he is and what he is trying to give me. It is really making our relationship better, and I feel closer to him in this aspect. Story number 5. We almost went our separate ways. It is a desperately hard thing for two people that deeply love each other to accept that they have a problem which is likely to end with both parties going their separate ways. I had been with my beautiful wife for 3 years after dating for around 18 months. We were happy, very happy, but we used to argue a great deal. We are both very stubborn. We both have differing views on world issues, and neither of us deal with stress very well, in all honesty. We coped reasonably well, but life can throw you a lot of curveball at times. Our debt was spiraling. We worked different hours. One of our elderly relatives needed quite a lot of care for a time, all of which led us to arguing constantly, day and night, about everything. Afterwards, we would often be in floods of tears, wondering why we were tearing each other apart when we loved each other so much. We had no answers. Work life constraints made it almost impossible for us to consider any possible answers, so things came to a point where we were making plans to go our separate ways. This was when we came across a documentary about surrendered wives, and then on the other foot, female led relationships. The comparisons to their marriages and ours were stark, almost unnervingly similar. Two strong willed, strong minded individual mindsets that frequently butted heads. It showed that it creates an atmosphere which is not only deconstructive, but where nothing is ever agreed or finalized, leading to all sorts of problems. It showed that you are highly unlikely to maintain a relationship where two people have the same stubborn mantra and that something has to change. Neither of us really thought we would get anything out of this program, but it showed us where we were and that there was an alternative. The question was, who would step down? Both of us agreed to write our terms for leading and show them to each other, and agreed to debate the matter in a civilized way without arguing. Being stubborn, I fully expected to win, but it came very clear that my wife was in fact better than me at certain crucial things, such as managing money, as well as the fact that she spent a lot of her free time constructively, and I couldn't really argue that spending time drinking down the pub and playing on my PlayStation was a good use of my time. So I agree, it was a steep learning curve, steep as I have ever faced, but things began to happen that I didn't expect. I didn't realize how much things were getting on top of me and what I was doing to seek an outlet for the stresses of everyday life. After a time, all of those feelings fade into having one goal, one thought process. The only thing that should concern you is being obedient without question. I struggled at times, as anyone would, but it's a question of focus and accepting someone as your superior leader in every way. Several years on, we are enormously happy. She controls all of our finances. I dress her, bathe her, handle all the housework, and continue to learn and be inspired by this amazing, beautiful woman. It's hard at times, but so is life. All I know is that our present situation is 1,000 times better than it used to be, and we are physically fitter, healthier, wealthier, and happier than we have ever been. A loving female-led relationship is not just a lifestyle choice, it can also be the solution to a great many issues. I am so pleased to be in service to my amazing lady, and I hope I can only improve and learn to do more. Story number 6. A good man deserves appreciation. As a woman in a loving female-led relationship, you might be tempted to start feeling entitled or spoiled, for lack of a better word. I get this way sometimes. My husband normally shows no sign of being upset by it, so it had become something I didn't even realize. There was one incident where he brought home some Subway sandwiches. He usually knows exactly how I want my sandwich, and of course, I'm a little picky. I forgot what he ordered on the sandwich, but I just remember the sandwich was wrong, and I was like, oh no, I don't want this. How could you get this for me? You know I don't eat this. Most people would have said, oh, well, you better eat it anyway, because it really wasn't that serious, but he went all the way back to Subway and got me another sandwich. He said, man, you are so spoiled. And that made me stop and think. Ladies, we have to start appreciating our men more and not taking his way of loving and supporting us for granted. This man is willing to do anything that will make you happy and satisfied, and that takes a lot of courage and love in this day and age. He must not feel that he is being taken advantage of or used, even if he gives you the opportunity to do that. Female-led relationships are such a beautiful thing in a world where the happiness and opinion of women is often a non-factor. But in my home, it's my world, thanks to my husband. My world would be nothing without the love, support, and admiration from my husband. You have to find ways to show him appreciation. I buy my husband gifts a lot, out of the blue, and just because. Sometimes it's a shirt with his favorite rapper on it, a very bright LCD flashlight that he can use when working, or his favorite food made when he comes home from work, even though I feel he shouldn't be eating that way. And don't forget the occasional blow just to show that you care and make him feel special. My husband also knows I will go to war for him. Because I know that he is passive, I am very protective of him. FLRs are not about just kicking back and getting served. There is much responsibility on the part of the female to be the type of woman that can handle taking the lead and securing the success of the family. Hope you enjoyed those 6 stories from my book, The Loving Female-Led Relationship Stories, available on Amazon. And if you want to get all of my FLR books, visit flrstyle.com and order the Loving Female-Led Relationships Super Pack.